Welcome to Tech Perspective Podcast presented by Flatiron School, featuring perspectives and stories from individuals all across the technology landscape. I'm Jaslyn Ferguson, and I'm Community Manager at Flatiron School. And today I am joined by a special guest, one of our very own alum. But before I introduce him, I do want to shout out a quick reminder that if you are not already subscribed to us on YouTube, or if you have not already followed us on your favorite streaming platform, go ahead and do so. Today's episode, we're going to get into a lot of really good topics and shine some light on a firsthand experience of going to Flatiron School. But we also have episodes that come out weekly every single Friday, so you do not want to miss. All right, now without further ado, today's guest is Maxwell Nitz, a Flatiron School alum from our Cybersecurity course. Welcome, Maxwell.
How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I just finished moving, so that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So I'm pretty happy. And I did it solo.
Oh my gosh. I have moved quite a few times and been short-staffed, but never been completely solo. So kudos to you. That is no easy feat. And thank you so much for joining me, even though you just went through that journey.
It also helps I have coffee.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I'd like to start with you just kind of telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, what your current role is, and we'll just kind of start from there.
Okay, well, I was actually born, adopted, and raised in Fairfax, Virginia, which is around about 25 minutes outside of DC. Now I reside in Tysons Corner, Virginia, which is 15 minutes out of DC. I'm currently I'm currently employed at a security firm called Hypershift Technologies, which is also based in Tysons Corner, Virginia. And I also work for Flatiron as a technical coach.
Oh, nice. So, awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit more about what you currently do. I will mention that I used to grow up in Virginia. I was actually born there. So definitely love that area. But tell me a little bit about what do you do? What is kind of your day-to-day work look like? But yeah, tell us a little bit about your role.
Well, right now I'm a SOC Analyst. I monitor and protect systems and report anything that's a little bit out, any anomalies a little bit out of the ordinary, like any phishing attacks, anything out of the ordinary, such as like suspicious destinations, like if for some reason like people are emailing from China, like why are you emailing to China, or because right now I'm working with a client that is an organization that provides resources for educational purposes. Mm-hmm. And it's my job just to make sure that the information is being protected when it's going from to and from locations virtually. And I report to my supervisors for that. And that's like the bread and butter of what I do. I also write reports, do projects, scan files to see if they're malicious or not. Mm-hmm. And to make sure that like everything's being secure every single day on multiple platforms, such as emails, people like employees activity, what they're doing, what platforms, even if they're using Netflix, we want to know why they're doing it or where they're going from, or if they're going on an unsecured website to see what are they doing going on there for, and so on and so forth.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's what an interesting job to be able to see, like, oh, somebody went on Netflix. What are they up to?
Yeah.
But also, of course, the more serious issues of, like you said, emailing China, kind of having that scope. So very interesting. But you didn't always work in cybersecurity, right? Tell us a little bit about what kind of led you on this journey to actually start a career in this field.
Well, real talk, I'm an eccentric person, so my way of getting here was pretty eccentric.
Okay.
So, I mean, I grew up on a construction site. My dad owns a construction company and a carpet company. So I grew up around a lot of like heavy machinery and stuff like that. And so I did like multiple hats, from doing construction, from going to culinary school to become an inspiring chef, and that unfortunately didn't work out. And it went from going from like in school, I was in music and I love music. And the funny thing is, I really can't read music to save my life, but I still tried to figure it out. But I had a love for it. So years later, I picked up DJing, and it went from DJing for me starting in Charlotte, North Carolina, because I went back down to Charlotte, North Carolina, because that's where I went to school, and that's where I had some friends down there. So I was trying to figure it out because I was 22, 23, young and dumb. So I was just like trying to figure out what I was trying to do with my life, because didn't make the best decisions growing up, hanging out with the right people. And down there, I realized that like it's just like the people I was surrounding myself with weren't really. It's like, I'm not saying that they were necessarily bad. It's just they weren't the right people for me. And so I picked up DJing, and I had a lot of haters. Even those people who I thought were my friends just started shooting me down about that. So, and things didn't work out with me and those people. So I just focused on me for a change, and I just wanted to do what I wanted to do for a change. And after some emotional things I had to go through down there, I ultimately moved back up to DC, and I picked up DC DJing, and I took some lessons at this spot called Bach Rock, and I met one of my first teachers up in DC named DJ Throwdown. His name is Ross. He's actually an international champion for DJing and scratching. And funny enough, like when I was in Charlotte, I had teachers down there named like DJ Clyde, and so many people. I wish I could give so many shout outs, but yeah, they know who they are, and I hope they're hearing it. But it went from that to me doing a few weddings and some community stuff, and then after that, I was doing Uber Eats while I was trying to figure things out, and I picked up one guy. I'll never forget his name. His name was Jeff Burns, and he gave me two numbers when I was giving him a ride to this club. I think it was Don Tito was dropping him off at. And anyone who in the DC area in the nightclub scene knows what that place is. And he gave me two numbers. One guy, I forgot his name was. He was a producer, and another person named Will Gowry. And Will actually ultimately got back to me, and I ended up shadowing him. And he asked me, hey, he put out an announcement on Facebook, hey, we're looking for a light guy. And to me, this is an opportunity, because I would be right next to all these other DJs while I'm learning another skill, which is essential. Because people think that the lights do everything automatic. No, there is literally a guy in the background doing all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first taste of computers. And it turned out that I had a pretty good knack for it, because there were a lot of people who didn't know how to update their stuff, or they come in kind of ignorant to the devices and the software that was required to use the industry standard equipment in the club. So we were always on pressing time for me to either have them update their software or get the necessary kits, and either sometimes they had to spend $100 to get that stuff instantly online to get them ready and round to go. And I was there just to help them with their assistance. And that's my first taste when I started working at this place called Living Room DC. And one of the associates of the club started noticing I had a knack for not only DJing but also as a light guy. And ultimately I became a house DJ there, opening up for acts. And I met multiple people, including Will, who is now one of the owners of the club. I've met people like Evan Park, his name is DJ Epics, DJ Vicious for Shaw, Brandon DJ Rise, Brandon Rise Perry, Sam, and the list goes on and on and on. And the people I haven't given a shout out, they know who they are, but they influenced me. And I've had a lot of people like in my past when I first started tell me that none of this was going to work. But And that, could you see yourself doing this when you're 50? And I'm surrounding myself with people who are making a really, really nice living off of it. So I just started being around them. And back in March 2020, I was about to start making the moves, and then the pandemic was just like, yeah, nah, sorry, man, no, yeah. So got laid off. I got laid off by my day job. Got laid off by the nightclub, from the nightclub, and it was pretty disheartening because it was like about 5 or 6 years of hard work, of lot of like uncertainty, like, and just the blessing of like actually having that connection from a Uber ride. It's just like a lot. There was a good amount of luck too, and it just went gone, just like in like the span of a month, and
Yeah.
went broke. I ultimately went broke for the remainder of the year, 2020, and on my 30th birthday, um, I had some people I was hanging out with, and it was like, honestly, like I don't even count that as my 30th because it was just everyone was struggling. It was a crap show. Excuse my French, but the governor of Virginia just reapplied all the restrictions of what was going on with the pandemic, and at that point, I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I hate to say this, but I gotta find something else to do. And I was just thinking for days, what am I good at? What else besides DJing am I good at? I'm like, well, I do like computers. All right, cool. Well, I also like protecting people. I also like protecting people and helping people. Okay, all right, cool. And I first started going into coding, but there was too much math in it, and I suck at math. So I just decided to look into something like cybersecurity. So I picked up some audio classes, audio books, and some applications on my phone, and I was just looking around for programs about for cybersecurity for the boot camp, because it was interesting. Because again, the nightlife scene opened a lot of doors for me, a lot of opportunities, and I knew a few people who were doing cyber boot camps. This other place called Cybertrex, and they went in there for software engineering, and this her name is Millie, and she was a coach check girl. And she went into there, and now she's making bank, and she's enjoying her life, working remotely, making a difference with herself and people in the world. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens with that. And I applied to Flatiron. I told them what I did on the side, and when I was having my second interview with with the administration team, they were just looking at me like, "You did all that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, like I was serious." And at that point, like the guy who was interviewing me, it's like, this is a little unprofessional. Don't say anything, but I'm going to recommend you,
Mm.
because I told them, like, I don't want to be like the hacker. I don't want to just be like that hacker, be cool and everything. I actually want to go in there and make a difference. And I'm not trying to be like Elliot Alderson, like from Mr. Robot. Actually, I don't know anyone who would ever want to be Mr. Robot.
Right.
But,
Love,
I'm like,
love the
that
show,
show's a
but
masterpiece. That show is a masterpiece, but I would never want to be that
right,
guy.
right.
But yeah, the the cliche is true. The rest is history. And then I got in. So
Awesome. Yeah. And so you said you were eccentric, you came from this background of being a DJ. And I know that this kind of came from a place of necessity, but did you ever fear or have reservations that you wouldn't be able to be creative enough, or, that kind of side of you would get lost? Do you feel that you can be creative in this role? Talk to me a little bit about that.
in the DJing world and the cyber world.
In the cyber security world. So coming from a place where, you're doing music and, you said you're kind of eccentric, so you're more maybe on the creative side of things, going to a role like cybersecurity, how did that feel? Do you still feel a sense of being able to be creative? Talk to me a little bit about that transition, or, if it's just been a smooth transition. Either way, what has it been like?
The creativity is still there,
Mhm.
because it gives you like this type of the stability that the IT world gives you. Depending on how you approach it. If you like, I mean, there are certain people. There are some people who like just do it just for the sake of having a stable job, and just say, look, that's having that status quo. Like, hey, look at me, I got this respectable job. and I'm just doing this for whatever. Or there are other people who want to go in there and say, okay, maybe I can be creative with people with their security. And I'm like, you can still be creative in the cybersecurity world. It may not be exactly the way that you envisioned, but honestly, you're a lot more of value to people if you're a lot more creative anywhere in IT. Because I mean, look at the greats. I mean, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, any of the greats, any of the people who have made like a huge difference in the world. None of them did everything that everyone wanted that they was expected them to do. Yeah. They all had to be creative. They weren't going in saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be this big guy. I'm gonna be doing this, that, whatever." I'm like, okay, let's see if I can do something that's gonna probably benefit the world. Um, so I went in here knowing, on a mission, saying, if I'm gonna be doing this, I'm doing this because I want to make a difference. I'm not doing this for myself. I mean, yeah, I did it because I wanted to have the stability because I was tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I was tired of just trying to get by. Like, especially in the times that we're living in, I'm like, okay, I can't do this no more. So, but knowing that, I had the opportunity to have a job that was stable, and if I push and work hard enough, smart too at the same time, that I could be making like a difference on for someone on the other side of the planet. Like, for example, maybe one day I'll be a security researcher, or someone programming some software that could help stop human traffickers, or just stop people like domestic violence when it happens, or just something around those lines, like stopping people from getting hurt, or just protecting people when, like, developing an AI system that will alert people if something seems off. That's what motivates me. And from day one, I was actually in special education programs for most of my life, I was not in any traditional schooling. I was always put in like small classes, or the teachers didn't really care about us. It was just kind of like, it was like, honestly, it felt like a dog pen, like, for because I learn differently. I have ADHD. I do have learning disabilities. Not making that excuse for myself. So I had to find other ways for me to learn, because it took me forever for me to learn anything. And I've had teachers and even people, like, a few years back, like, this is just off the topic. Like, I was learning piano, and I had like a piano teacher giving me a hard time because it was hard for me to understand the keys and this, that, whatever. And just like, they would shoot me down, and just teachers in general. And not everyone was like that, obviously, but it's just like, when you're put in that, like, in a program like that, it's almost it's kind of like, they kind of like almost like forget about you.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot. It's just, and it's a touchy subject, because I don't want to be rubbing anyone the wrong way, because it was hard for everybody who was in that program, because like the school system, like, said that, like, basically convinced our parents that, oh, we're gonna be taken care of, but it was just like, they just gave us like schoolwork, and just like, if you graduate, you graduate. If you didn't, you didn't. And it was annoying. It was it still irks me, because to this day, there's still programs out there, and it's not just limited to this school system, like the school system I went through. It's just school systems around the United States where they just like, oh yeah, we'll take care of your kids. Not, no, they won't. And it made things difficult, because they put limitations on me. Like, I mean, I had like IEP meetings where, like, my parents were there, and I've had like teachers saying like, oh, like, and I said, like, I was thinking about doing something like this. Like, are you sure? Like, there's a lot of math in it. I don't think you can handle that. I'm like, why would you tell a kid that?
Right.
Yeah, like, why would you like put limitations on a kid like that? Because I'm still like going through the hurdles of knowing that I have the intellect to be in IT. Because
Yeah, that's
if
what
I knew I could handle it, yeah, huh?
I was just gonna say, that's what I was gonna ask you is, going through something like that, I'm sure that puts kind of an impact on you, even through your adult years of maybe, doubting yourself, or even imposter syndrome, of feeling like, am I in the right place? Can I do this? When for so long, it sounds like people were trying to kind of put you in a box of what you can and can't do. Um, so how have you, I guess, kind of put that aside, or move forward in spite of those things, or in spite of those kind of doubting thoughts that may still pop up because of those experiences?
Truth is, maybe it's just me, but I haven't really gotten over it because it's from day one. I mean, I had like a psychologist, like I've had psychologists give me IQ tests at 3 years old because I didn't talk until I was 4 years old. And they're like, okay, yeah, so he might have this. They diagnosed him with this, they diagnosed him with that. They're like, okay, he's probably not gonna be able to do this. He's probably not gonna be able to do that. He should do this. He should do that. And my adopted parents, at the time, like they didn't really like understand what ADHD really was entailing because it was relatively new,
Right.
relatively new. But now years later, people are saying like, yeah, Einstein, like people like Einstein and the greats. And I'm not saying I'm a genius because I'm not, but he had ADHD. He like
Yeah.
people say if he was around this time, that he would have been diagnosed with it.
Right.
And it's just we just learn differently, but the school system never really took the time. And I'm not talking about every single one of the teachers,
Right. Of
because
course.
there are teachers out there right now that I'm still in contact with, which I thank every single day because they were a blessing because they looked out for me. But it's just the system itself, just like they were just like, okay, yeah, we're not even gonna bother with these people. And it wasn't just me. And it leaves scars. It leaves scars on on people because it's annoying. Well, I really honestly don't know how else to explain it. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say, oh, it was so sad, but yeah,
No, but
because I'm not looking for a sob story.
gotcha. But I do appreciate you sharing that story because I'm sure that that's something that so many people who are listening can relate to. So many people are told, oh, you can't do this or you can do that, or, put into positions where, as they were growing up, they were diagnosed with this or diagnosed with that, and then told whatever limitations that would be for their life moving forward. But I love to see how you still, in spite of that, recognize your own talents and that you've been able to push through it and to make a career for yourself in tech. I just think that that's wonderful, and so thank you so much for sharing that because definitely not a sob story. I think it's a powerful story that a lot of people can resonate with. So,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, what were you gonna ask?
I was just going to say, so you decided to make the switch, and I know you said that you took some, or you listened to some audiobooks and some resources online, which we love to hear because that's what we always tell everyone is to kind of start with, resources online, do your research, see if this is actually the right fit for you. But what ultimately led you to decide to go to a boot camp and specifically Flatiron School?
My situation, my overall situation. Like I didn't have jack, no money. I was in crazy debt. I'm still getting myself out of it. Like, I mean, honestly, these days I have nothing. Like it's anyone in our generation. Like, if you're in debt
Right.
because of like things out of your control, don't be ashamed. It wasn't your fault. And I mean, because I had a great full-time job working in a warehouse, and I working the club scene on the weekend. So I was slowly but surely getting savings. I was able to get like a thousand like for savings like over time. But then March 2020 came around, and I get that letter I get that letter, we had a meeting at the warehouse, and they're just saying, hey, here you go, here's some jobs that you could probably work at until this is over. We don't know when this is going to be and I was like, I didn't show it to anyone. I did my best to hide it, but I was honestly scared. I was like, what am I going to do now? Because all this effort, all this hard work, and then now I gotta go, and I know it wasn't their fault. And I was just left with Uber Eats. All I was just making food deliveries, which was nice, but I was technically essentially an essential worker, and I was making a good living. I was making okay money, but car was breaking down. At the time, I was taking care of a friend who, unfortunately, she has some issues she was taking care of, and we had a falling out, and ultimately she passed away when I had to tell her to go. And that was another thing, in 2020 I had to deal with. Just I lost this, and I lost a friend that I was trying to help out, and it's just like, and that was one of the drives. So I'm like, okay, something's got to change because I can't do this anymore. Because it's just like, yeah, I've been through too much for too long just to like deal with that. And like a few years prior, like when I was still living in Charlotte, I was dealing with just a lot of emotional trauma. I was in and out of mental hospitals. Like there was one time I dabbled with suicide, and then it just it all boiled up to this point. I'm like, okay, something's got to change because I'm not going to be going through this again.
Yeah.
So that's what pushed me. And then I see this program that said, okay, 3 months. I'm like, is it? Oh, wait. 3 or 4 months? Is this like a pyramid scheme? What's going on? Yeah, because
Yeah.
been there, done that. I've had people like, hey, you should try this, and they're like, don't worry, it's a surprise, and they drive me all like an hour away to some random place, and I'm like, oh god,
You're like
I
another
like
scheme.
yeah, and I've had people like drive me to that multiple times. I'm like, yo, I'm not doing this. Leave me alone. And I was
Ano-
nice about it, but they never hear from me again.
Yeah, another kind of defining factor, I would say, is, in our generation, we're all in debt. And for some reason, there's all of these pyramid schemes or get rich quick things that, sometimes a lot of people can fall into. But yeah, so I can see how you would first maybe think, wow, that's so quick. How is that even possible? But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that even though our programs, you can complete them a lot faster than say you would to go get a 4-year degree. It's just a very, condensed version or an intensive session to get a lot done or a lot learned in a short amount of time. So yeah,
And
so it's 2020. You said things have got to change. And by the way, I'm so sorry for your loss. Uh, but you get to this point, you say something's got to give, so you go to a boot camp, and now here you are, working in cybersecurity. um, did you ever have any, and I know you mentioned a lot of people from your past of being in the DJ space, but who would you say, I guess, were your kind of mentors through all of this? Because it sounds like you had a lot going on just in life in general, which, right, life goes on, we all have a lot going on. So how or who was able to kind of help you or to be a mentor in this space, if anyone at all, as you were kind of entering into an entirely different field?
I've had a lot. My first real influence, coming first, was his name is Claude. I just call him DJ Claude. Another one was DJ Red, and other trying to recollect his name, but uh, he's been like he was one of the reasons I got my first gig. I can look up his name, but like he's always was cheering me on from the sidelines. Anytime I posted something up on Instagram, he always said that, yo, man, I always love your story. And I remember when I first met you, I introduced you to Barrel at the Lift. And I mean, then I met like another person named Toby, and he that was my first experience to networking. And he went up to this guy, and he said, "Hey, I got this dude right here. This guy can play." And the first night when I was at this, it was a hookah bar somewhere in South Charlotte, and Toby, the guy who was the head DJ at the time, I just put my stuff together and I started DJing. And he came up to me. He's like, "Yo, man, how long you been DJing?" And I said, like a month. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Just come back in 2 weeks." And then after 2 weeks, I just came in regularly on Sundays, and I didn't get paid anything. And but I still came in for open mic. It was like an open mic for DJs, and the owner of the bar, one of the owners of the bar said, "Okay, hey, we're gonna have you on this day and that day and all this stuff." And again, this is around the time I was going through all my emotional turmoil stuff. So I owe everything to those people because that was my first taste of being getting paid despite what people were saying. And then when I moved back up to DC, I again Will DJ Throwdown Ross was one of my first influences, and then I meet Will, and I was shadowing him, And it just went from there. And then I met Edwin Park, DJ Epics, and then I met DJ Rise, DJ Sam, DJ Vicious Vishal, and then I started meeting people like in the scene, like so many other people I haven't mentioned, but they know who they are.
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of influences, and people just like telling me this and giving me like tips, texting me like, "Yo, doing this," or like, "Yo, that," and it's just like it was multiple influences, and again, I caught the eye of one of the associates of that club of Living Room, and he noticed like again he knows I had a knack for tech, and as soon as he saw I got my cert from Flatiron, he's like, I might have something for you. Just bear with me." And it took a minute, but after a while he got back to me, and the rest is history. So.
Yeah, so they say that, friends and the people that you choose to be around you are like your chosen family. And it sounds like you really built up a support system around you of people who were able to really support you in your path. I do want to ask, so it's Black History Month. And with that, there's heightened awareness around the fact that in the tech industry, right? I mean, there's a gap in diversity, right? I think the stat is something like there's only 7% of the kind of tech professionals are Black tech professionals. So stats like that, when you look at something like that, or when you enter into a field, did that ever did it ever give you pause or concern when you thought about, okay, I may be entering into a space where there may not be other people who look like me or have some of the same life experiences? Was that ever a deterrent, or how did you kind of, I guess, approach that being just a fact of going into tech?
Knowing that there were people who are different than me, not really, because I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, upper middle class, like great. It was great. I had a pretty good upbringing. I mean, when I went into school or just went out into the real world, and there were times I actually had to hide the fact that my parents were white because people would bully me for that, or people would say, "You're like well spoke, man. You're like doing this, like you're not black enough to do this, that, or whatever." Like, I mean, I've had people like just whenever I went out in public with my family, especially my other adopted siblings, because I'm from a family of adopted siblings. Most of my siblings were adopted, and whenever we went out in public, people were just like staring, just looking at it, and people like pointing, and their mother's like, "Don't point, Kyle," and
Mhm.
just stuff like that. And like humor aside, like getting those stares, like I'm just so used to people just like looking like, "Hey, who's that guy?" Like, "Hey, that's interesting." Whoa, whoa. And I've had even when I was a kid when I didn't really completely understand it, there were times like even when I was at my mom would take me to this doctor, and he just said the one thing that just set my adopted mom off, saying, "It's so great what you're doing for that kid." And she just said it in the most polite way, "F you," and then we never saw we never saw that person again.
Yeah.
And like throughout my life, I've done like I let people say some really messed up stuff to me, like because I thought it was just because they were friends and we were messing around, but deep down like the words they were saying, like, yeah, even the N word, I'm like, man, I look back, I'm like, man, like I never understood how messed up that word really was back then. Because God bless my adopted parents and everything like that. And they did their best to let me know, like, hey, you're different. I mean, they gave me the talk when I got my driver's license. They basically like my dad, I love my dad. He was basically like Mufasa from Lion King, and like he was just showing me around. He would just show me around certain places, and that. And I seriously said, "Hey, what about that rural place over there?" He's like, "That's the countryside, Maxwell. You must never go there, my son." And yeah, it's like that. And to this day, like for example, like West Virginia is just right around the corner. Like it's about 45 minutes away from there. I don't go there by myself. Um,
Gotcha.
I'm not paranoid, but I do know there's some certain places, especially these days,
Mhm.
that people like us should never should not go to by ourselves. And it's a harsh reality. And a few months ago, I had a harsh reality. I was actually one of 3 victims of a hate crime. Like, I was at a Barnes and Noble in one of the most diverse places
Yeah.
in Northern Virginia at a in Falls Church, and it was this Karen. Yeah, you might as well just call her Karen, and she's causing the scene, like pointing out the fact that I had tattoos and stuff like that, and she actually ended up trying to attack someone I was showing cybersecurity to, and I had to get in the way, and she ended up like attacking me, and I had to push her away. And there were women and children there, and everyone of every race was like looking at her uh, like, do you know what you're doing? And it wasn't the lady that freaked me out. It was the situation because again, being a black man, especially in this country, one wrong move, I'm in jail
Right.
or worse.
Yeah.
And that was something that was something I had to process because and my parents were all over it and freaking out and everything. And the cop looked at me like, "Yo, I'm so sorry." He's just like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." And everyone was looking up to me, came up to me, and everyone else that was victimized, like, "You okay? You okay?" And people were coming in saying, "Yo, I saw that. She's not gonna get away with it." And but still, like the fact that just because of the way I look, and we were just minding our own business,
Yeah.
just some person off a rocker, maybe off her antidepressants, I don't know, just decided to cause a scene, and it was hysterical. And she ran out and then ran back in saying, "Black people, am I right?" And we all looked at her like,
Oh,
uh,
I'm so
yeah, we were
sorry
all
that
like,
you went through that. That's terrible. It's one of those things, we talk a lot in this day and age about microaggressions, but obviously there's a lot more than that. There are just blatant aggressions that happen as well. And so I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that. But at the same time, it also sounds like you're no stranger to being in spaces where, maybe you don't have a lot of other people that may look like you in a situation, and so in a sense, going into tech and maybe being the one person, in a certain space, or not necessarily having other people that look like you, in a sense, maybe it sounds like you were, I guess, well equipped to handle that sort of situation. And so, as we push forward, and as I know Flatiron School, we push for diversity in tech, and we see other organizations doing the same. Um, you know, it's really good to see and hear stories like yours, or have people in places like you, that can help to pave the way. And so when the next person comes along and they are a person of color, or they are, a Black person that says, "I want to be in tech," hopefully they're listening to this podcast right now and they can hear your story, and to know that, even, through it all, and even having some of the situations that you've had, that you're still able to be in this space. And so again, just kudos to you for helping to change the percentages, or to change that ratio, and to bridge that gap in diversity in tech.
and
Yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No.
That, and also one back on the topic of mentors.
Mhm.
And another thing that DJing gave me, it was the opportunity to pursue another one of my passions, martial arts. Um, I do Muay Thai. I've been training in that for a few years. I actually trained in Thailand for a few months, and it was it's been that was one of the things that made me tougher mentally because my mentors, all the coaches. I go to this place called Disciple, represent, but they basically instilled in me discipline and one hell of a resolve, and just like keeping myself like stoic in situations like that, because in that world, in martial arts, especially Muay Thai, which is one of the most brutal martial arts on the planet. Like MMA, get mixed martial arts like UFC or Bellator or One Championship. A lot of the moves come from Muay Thai, and with that, you have to have a tougher spirit. You have to have a lot of resolve, and you have to have the commitment to do it. And these past 2 years, I couldn't commit to it as much as I really hoped because of everything that was happening in my life. But the coaches from Ajon Scott Howard, the headmaster there, his son, Coach Cam, Coach Adam, Coach Brian, Coach John, and all my teammates, and anyone else I haven't mentioned, but they know who they are. If it wasn't for them and how they basically just toughened me up in their own way, I know for a fact I wouldn't have been able to do the things I've done for the past 2 years. Like I was working 3 jobs last year just to get by, and I was going to school full time. And honestly, it was just the knowing that it was the commitment and the discipline that it basically the training that I went through that they put me through that gave me the mentality to keep pressing on despite the uncertainty of what was going on in the world. Because like there were many times I went into that gym and I was just tired as anything. And Coach Adam, there was one day he's like, "Yo, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just tired." He's like, "Are you injured?" And this was around a time where he needed some people to help one of the people getting ready for a fight. And I said, "Yeah, I'm just a little tired." I'm like, "Are you injured?" And I said, "No." I'm like, "Okay, great, cool. Get in there. Like, we'll wake you up real quick. That guy will give you a special shock you'll never forget." I'm like, "Okay." But yeah, it's just like the mentality. It's just like I mean, I wake up and I don't want. There's a lot of times I don't want to do stuff. Like there are times I didn't want to go into the gym, but I'm like, "No, suck it up, dude. Go in there. You do that for a reason." And I'm not doing it for fame and glory. I'm doing it because like it's one of the reasons why I was able to be where I am today. Those people molded me into the man, helped mold me into the man that I am now. And the best part is this is just the beginning. So a lot of the stuff that happened is happening in my life right now. I mean, I just moved to from a studio apartment to like an even better spot. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you. And just, I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging. It's just like this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the people in my life. And like there are other people. I've had many influences, and I haven't mentioned them, but they know who they are. That they're the reason why I'm here. So and right now I'm in the process of giving back in some way possible because if they were the people who were there for me from the very beginning, even people from the past, people who were rooting me on from the sidelines, anyone who's there, even people who were giving me some really hardcore constructive criticism, that molded me into the person that could like handle the things I have now. Because I'm just glad that it didn't happen just like that. Because I wouldn't have been able to appreciate any things I have now. So
Awesome. I love that. And I think, kind of like you said, of just it's an important thing for anyone who's listening. I think it's an important thing to recognize that, we're all on this journey and the ups and downs, but also the people that come along the way can really make an impact on us. And so I love how, again, you kind of built up this community around you, whether it was in DJing or in doing martial arts, where you had people that could kind of support you on a level of supporting you in life, but helping you to ultimately reach your goals, which has ultimately led you to reach your career goals and be sitting here right now. So that is super, super awesome.
if you told me that I was good, if anyone told me that I was going to be doing a podcast or being a speaker at a Black Excellent Town Hall meeting in a few weeks, I'd be like, "What? Okay." I'm like, "You crazy."
Yeah, but I feel like that's so many people can relate to that, right? Because somebody listening right now, they're in it, right? They're having maybe their worst year and things are falling apart. But that's why it's so important to hear stories like yours and to doing this podcast, some of the different stories I've heard from our alum. It's so encouraging because, you can be in a place in your life and not necessarily have it figured out, and that's okay. It really is a journey. And thankfully we have tools nowadays like going to a boot camp, that make kind of making that transition or deciding, hey, I need to do something quickly or to really kind of change my future or to pivot really quickly. And those options are available. So and you're living proof, so that's just awesome to hear. Um, what advice would you give to people listening right now who are thinking, maybe I want to go into tech, maybe cybersecurity, maybe something else, but what advice would you give to these people who are kind of just on the fence of like how to get started?
Do some research.
Yeah.
As to I'm pretty sure a lot of people thinking about going in IT know somebody who is in IT.
Mhm.
Start asking questions. Go on the forums. Start reading a book on IT, because when you see your first reaction at a book or an audio book on how like all this information comes in, like if you feel like then like it's probably not for you, because it's almost like technology. It's corny as it sounds. It's almost like magic. There's so much to it. There's a lot of tedious stuff that goes into it, but it's just how you approach it. If you are overwhelmed instantly, you have to like just understand, have a mentality of just getting things bit by bit, because you're not, no one, even the people with a high IQ can just recollect everything all at once. Because I mean, I got cheat sheets about online Linux. Like, I mean, I went through that boot camp, but there are things I need a literal refresher on. And it's just like in this world, it's constant, like there's constant information happening all the time. There are applications like Udemy, which I do religiously. I watch those videos religiously. Like, I don't know, for example, get a book on IT fundamentals about what a computer is. Like, I mean, everyone knows what a computer is, but okay, cool. What's inside a computer? Okay, how does that computer work? And if you can get past that and understand what binary is, or if you understand, like, if you can go past the basic fundamentals of IT, and be like, okay, this is pretty interesting. I'm like, okay, go from there. Because if you're jumping in just because to see how much people make starting out, don't do it. Because like it's just the money. Yeah. It's having a stability is all well and good, but you have like thing that people do not understand when they go into a world like that is that a lot of the work, and I say this with the utmost respect, can be tedious, can be boring. There are long hours. There are times where it's gonna get like boring as hell. But it's
Right.
just you got to understand that, hey, that it's just part of the job. I
Yeah.
mean, because if you're doing it just for the sake of money, and like, again, like, yeah, I did it for the stability, but I thought long and hard, like, hey, I'm all over the place. I'm not making excuses for myself. I'm a scatterbrain. Like, ask anyone I know. They're like, yeah, he's kind of all over the place. I'm a goofy dude. Um, but it's just, you gotta understand, like, if you don't think you can handle like all that information being thrown at you at once, like, maybe it's best to do something else. But if you want to, it just depends on how bad you want.
Yeah.
Because if you want, like, I'm not saying that this world is not exciting, because it is,
Mhm.
but a lot of people like think that again, they're gonna become like Elliot Olson, because like, ever since ethnical hacker became a thing, everyone's like, man, I want to be like that. I want to see all those graphics and stuff. I
Yeah.
want to do all that cool stuff. I'm like, yeah, bro. All you're gonna be seeing, like, when you're doing any of that penetration testing or hacking, is a black screen. That's all you're gonna see. You're gonna
Yeah.
be, yeah,
A
and
little reality check there.
yeah, because it's just like the movies, like, especially, unfortunately, even like Iron Man, people think, oh, you're gonna see all those cool graphics like in the first Iron Man movie when he was like designing the Iron Man. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. And I mean, it's cool. I mean, you can get like some cool screensavers to make it seem like that, to keep yourself entertained. But when it comes to the actual work, it's not. It's not as glamour. It's not as glamorous, like, visually, as you think. I mean, in the next 10 years, probably, since we're gonna have holographic technology, but still.
Right.
But until
Give
then,
it a couple years. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, last question, and then we'll close this out. What is a quote that you live by? Now, this is a question that we ask everybody who's on the podcast. So definitely, if you need a second to think about it, feel free to do so. But just what is a quote that you live by?
You are who you surround yourself with. You are, like, if you're miserable, or if you're messed up, if you're like doing things that you never thought were gonna, if you're doing things that are not what you thought were gonna do, then reevaluate your surroundings, reevaluate your situation. I mean, some situations can't be helped. I can like, and I understand, and everyone else, a good portion of people in the world understand that. But the people that you're around 24/7 is ultimately eventually what you're going to be. If you're around people who know what they want, or around people who are, I don't know, let's say I don't know, they got a good amount of money, or they have a good they're disciplined. Guess what? There's a really good chance you're gonna be disciplined too. If you're around people who do things that are stupid, or people who are in and out of jail, or just doing things that are pretty questionable, guess what? You're gonna be doing stuff that's questionable too. So surround yourself with people that like bring positivity in your life, and don't and believe, and yeah, just and stay away from Debbie Downers, naysayers, anyone who says like, oh, this, that, or whatever. Because I'm willing to bet either they've never done it or they've done it before, and it's just it didn't work out for them. So they decide to take anyone who tries to go down that path, say, okay, it didn't work out for me, so it's probably not going to work out for you. Those people are not only toxic, but they just all they do is just like they just giving up on themselves. So they don't want to see other people succeed.
Gotcha.
So it's just surround yourself with people who will bring you up, not people who bring you down. And surround yourself with people who want to be helped.
Yeah.
And you can give out all the branch all you want, but unless they want to do the work,
Mhm.
then you're really just like you're kind of wasting your time. And I say that with the utmost respect to people out there, and I'm not calling anybody out. It's just everybody, like everyone's different,
Yeah.
but just surround yourself with people who will bring you up. And also those who say they can and those who say they can't are both usually right.
Mhm.
If you say you can, there's a good chance or really great chance it's going to happen. If you say you can't, guess what? It's not going to happen. Because do you want to live in the world what years later of what ifs? Do you want to live in the world of like, man, I wonder what would happen if I actually did it? If you did it and failed, at least you can look back and say, at least I tried. But if it did succeed, you can look back and smile. Because if it didn't work out, at least you can look back and you're probably doing something else that fit the path of what you're trying to do in life. Cool. But you can look back and not have you can look back in your life and not have any real regrets about that thing. Huh. And that has suffered from FOMO and whatever people are dealing with. It's just if you don't live in the worlds of what ifs, because nothing is set in stone. Because I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. I just took a leap of faith, and now I have all this, and I'm still processing the fact that all this is happening. So it's just you might as well take a leap of faith and see what happens. That actually comes from like one of my favorite movies, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. When he
Oh,
took that
yeah.
jump, that leap of faith, that's what I'm talking about. Best
Love it.
scene ever.
Love that movie, and I love that bit of advice.
Yeah, it's just a leap
Awesome.
of faith because you have no idea until you try. And and again, like, and then here's another corny quote from Yoda from Star Wars:
Yeah.
"Do or do not. There's no try. Just do it. See what happens."
Yeah.
Because eventually with Muay Thai, I'm going to start competing again. That's what I'm working towards. And it's either do it or don't.
Yeah.
Don't try, just do it and see what happens. If you lose, you lose. Okay, then go back to the lab and figure out what you did wrong.
Yeah. I love
So
that. Yep. And sometimes you don't lose and you look up and you're working in cybersecurity and you've proved all these people from your past wrong, and you're, in a career in tech and all that good stuff. So uh, awesome. Yep. Thank you so much again, Maxwell, for joining me and having this conversation. I think it's so important for anyone who's listening just to hear real stories like yours, especially coming out of a year like 2020, where a lot of people, I'm sure, can kind of resonate with having a hard time that year. And for you to kind of explain how you were able to be in a situation like that, but still push through and to find yourself a career that works for you now and is stable and is something that you enjoy, is definitely, I think, super encouraging for everyone to hear. So thank you again for sharing your story. Did you have
Yeah.
any social media handles or a website or anything that you wanted to shout out, or places where people can follow you or keep up with your journey?
It is Wolfhart, WOLFHAART. And on LinkedIn, y'all can find me on the Flatiron alumni page.
Perfect.
And that's about it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, go follow Maxwell and keep up with his journey. Also, be sure to, again, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you are streaming this right now, go ahead and add us to your playlists on your favorite streaming channels, and follow us at Flatiron School on most of the platforms for social media. I'm Jaslyn Ferguson. This has been an honor, and we'll definitely see you guys next time. Bye.